Oh yeah, sexy biscuits. Nice.
Longboard Bros 1975. A YouTuber's on the rise. Reviewing games late at night and sometimes friends. But Longboard Bros 1975.
Hey YouTube, Longboys Post 1975. Excuse me, I scratched my nose. Haven't got a hat on today, so my hair is really itching my nose, but we'll sort that out tomorrow with a haircut. You didn't need to know any of that. It's Wednesday, which means I like to have a little bit of a vlog with you. This would be my 13th one. I'm off work, so tour a moment. I'm actually off work for a week. They're actually throwing holiday at people, so I was like, I'll have one. Thank you very much. Question up there, which is, are you happy with when, with the era you grew up in gaming and the systems you were exposed to? Or if you could, would you change it? And what would you change it to? Now, I've kind of touched upon some of the things in this, mainly, the era I grew up in and the systems I got to experience in certain other vlogs before, going back ages. But the reason I want to talk about this is there's a guy, and there's no them or us in this, it's just me talking about my opinions, and as I always say, taste is subjective, and your preferences are your own. But there's a guy at work who's considerably younger than me, and we were talking, and he kind of, I was talking about my gaming stuff, and I was saying like, oh yeah, I do retro gaming, and I've got, YouTube channel and stuff like that. And he was explaining his gaming history, and it made me feel really old, but which he kind of played upon, but we'll get to that. Whereas his gaming history is original Xbox, Xbox 360, and currently has an Xbox One. And he actually said to me, like, what was your first experience with gaming and stuff like that? And I said, well, technically kind of Pong then, even though I didn't own one, but there's an experience in there. Excuse me, windy pops, I apologize. Then there was obviously Atari 2600, then there was ZX Spectrum, and he was just going, wow man, that's like, I mean, how do you feel about that? If you could change it to like now, I mean, think about it, think about when I'm your age, what I'm going to see in a system. And I was like, well, thanks for that, mate, thanks for writing me off. And he just goes, but like, the leaps we're getting now are just so much more superior in, like, for every generation. And I'm like, easy there, son, you've only experienced 3. He goes, the differences between the last and their importance is so much more than yours. And I was like, not so, mate. First of all, the differences between the Xbox One and the 360, as far as I'm concerned, is not as gigantic as some of the differences, advancements in the gaming systems I saw back in the day. Second of all, I think you're missing the point, which is because someone like myself who grew up with gaming experienced far more impressive and industry shaping and defining changes, whether they were a little bit here, a little bit there, not massively huge or something. This was the early days in the infancy of gaming, so they had far more relevance than the subtle tweaking that seems to go on now. And I wouldn't change that for a world. Actually, possibly at the end of this video I'll say where I would want to go, and it's not drastically different, but I wouldn't change that for the world. I think you're missing the point, which is if you go back to when we were gaming, what we initially had, with me before you started to see these trickle-through of systems was we basically played board games, and we had tabletop games which were just a collection of lights and stuff like that. So when you saw a Pong machine, this was a game changer. It shook your world up. It was such a massive difference to go from board games to tabletop games, then go tabletop to Pong, and then from Pong to Atari 2600 to then ZX Spectrum. This was something when you were a kid, back then in the day, which is why these changes that you seem to think are so massive that I'm missing out on with like Xbox and stuff like that. These changes are just, they were just utterly mind-blowing. To go from something that was basically a physical toy to something that you held in your hand and you watched the screen, albeit very limited, such as lights and bleeps and bloops and flashing around, that was like the bottom of your world fell out. That was just like something you couldn't utterly believe that, obviously the amusements existed, but they were more mechanical than they're really early sort of games which shaped and created these home systems. But the fact that all of a sudden that made a leap to home, And then it was affordable, and then the fact that for Christmas you used to get, you know, like pullback races and stuff like that, and board games and books, and, you know, plastic figures and action figures and stuff like that. And all of a sudden you were getting electrical toys, and then you were getting electrical toys with multiple games. Then you were getting ones where you could, you know, continuously change the game. Then you were getting one that suddenly you could program, you could swap with your mates, you know, you could allegedly tape to tape have an infinite, you know, near infinite arcade library, and then watch it grow forth from then onwards, you know, and up to what you think is superior and brilliant. And so from a technical perspective it is superior and brilliant, but that to me is not half as fun and enjoyable as being around when this process began. Like, you know, great, yeah, you know, when you're my age from now, you'll be seeing stuff that's absolutely fantastic, but it's not going to go through the changes that it did when I was a kid. And by those I mean the big changes. Like I said, that toys went from like a physical sort of just old school action figure, you know, car toy, book toy, you know, board game toy, into something completely and utterly off the difference. You can experience that if your gaming history is Xbox original, Xbox 360 and now Xbox One. There's no like groundbreaking change there. There's no thing that shakes your tiny little world that you talk about with your mates and just go, holy shit, you won't believe this, I got to play Pac-Man at home. What do you get to say? Hey, I got a new Halo game. You will not believe the impressive rates of the polygons or whatever over the previous one. It's quite surprising. This I can't explain. I can't articulate what I'm trying to say here, which is it's this. That ultimately coming into a brand new world is experiencing this new world that you've basically inhabited from previous generation, and just going along with, you know, the ride. Now this doesn't hold a far in comparison to being there when it started and just being, you know, faced, you know, getting to experience something that was completely and utterly a groundbreaking change in the way kids and adults, you know, were entertained at home. So, you know, am I jealous of the current generation? No. If your history, although lots of people, you know, from the current generation, obviously not this guy, understand what's, you know, what our love is, and are getting into retro gaming to it. So I'd say fair play. That's really, really cool. You know, it's not going to be the same for you because it's not about just nostalgic memories as such. It's about understanding the process and the importance of these changes and where it all came from. But to answer the question when you said, would you like to be me now and this and that and this, you know, well, from a perspective of I don't like being old, possibly, but from a perspective of experiencing what you would get equivalent of my gaming history when you're my age, not really. I think you're the one in this equation or question who's missing out and not me, and I got the better end of the stick and the better end of the deal. I'd be very interested to see what, you know, those of you out there have to say about this, particularly, I just invented a brand new word, excuse me, particularly of the different age groups amongst my, you know, my subscription base. But if I could ultimately change it, as I said, I wouldn't go forward and make, you know, like 5th, 6th generation or whatever, where I got to appreciate and understand or experience, you know, this industry be created. I would go probably another 5 years back prior to myself, which is to really get to experience this change from proper, because I was there for some of it but not all of it, but proper old school traditional forms of entertainment into the first really early forms of electronic, you know, an arcade video game entertainment. I just think to be there when, you know, literally you saw Pong in the arcades for the first time, I would kill to know what that felt like back in the day. Don't get me wrong, I'm very happy with my video game history, and that's only sort of, you know, 5 years, maybe a little bit more than that prior to it, but that to me would just be, that must have been literal like Tron or something, like just the coming of an unbelievable new digital age. I find some that the old news programs about it on, you know, YouTube, but that just must have been experiencing it on your TV and talking about this new experience in entertainment. You get to bat a ball around with 2 sticks. It's state of the art. I just would imagine as being a kid sat on the couch with your parents experiencing that on the news back then. Just must have been one of the most exciting experiences in the world. I just don't think, if you've grown up with modern, and again, there's nothing wrong with being young, it's not your fault. Traditional, can't help when you were born. video game consoles, I can't see, maybe I'm wrong, correct me by all means, how that would hold anything against the initial, you know, leap into what ultimately shaped what we call modern gaming. Anyway, just my thoughts. As always, I would love to know what you think. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.